Hello, everybody. All right, so let's see now. Alrighty then. So, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Wednesday, August the 13th. Let me give a special welcome to my Rumble viewers as today is the first day um, of course, stream on Rumble. Um, let's see. So we're actually streaming right now on both Rumble and um, and YouTube. So hopefully, if you guys haven't checked out the Rumble site, you go over there and follow me there as well, because I'll be streaming there as well, or trying to anyway, see how things go here. Gonna of course give people a chance to come in before we get started. Um, so as always, guys, if you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything that we talk about here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Anyways, let's see. And I just was reading that based on the I guess on the Rumble side of it, apparently I can't read the read my comments won't show up on the Rumble site because apparently StreamYard is not connected to them, but they still do will send it over. So I'll probably be going flipping back and forth as I usually do. But with that, again, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. We'll try to answer the question. So now we're coming up on 3 minutes here. It does look like we have some people coming in. So let me talk about what's on tap for tonight. So of course, as it says in the description, I do a nightly niche newscast where I cover articles pertaining to, of course, those items that were traditionally considered niche: anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling, and on pro wrestling. What we'll be doing, we'll go over some articles from sites like Bounding in the Comic. So got 3 articles from that, and then we'll do the wrestling wrap up where we'll look back to last night's WWE NXT, as well as looking ahead to tonight's AEW, and then we'll wrap things up with this day niche history. So with that all being said, guess I am going to now go ahead and get started with the pull up the first article. I said get all your daily niche news right here. Well, what's traditionally been considered niche news. Anyways, as I said, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Well, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into all this. Get to the first article here. And we'll be covering. All right, just looking ahead to some of the stuff here. Okay. All right, so Gundam manga publisher Kadokawa now recruiting overseas talent due to Japan's population crisis. Articles by Spencer McCauley published on August 11th, which was this past Monday. Of course, what he's talking about with Japan's population crisis is that right now young people are not having as many babies, and it's and of course the older generations have been starting to die off for the last like 20 years or so. So let's get into this. There's Char Aznable from Mobile Suit Gundam. So let's see what we got here. So, in seeking to keep their heads above water at a time of stark economic uncertainty, noted Mobile Suit Gundam manga publisher Kadokawa has moved to combat the dwindling talent and audience pools resulting from Japan's ongoing population crisis by turning their production attentions outside of their national borders, beginning with a noted investment in overseas artists and writers. This insight into the publisher's forward-facing plans was provided to the public courtesy of its Sho Sagawa, its director of global comic department, and Risa Tomazaki, a member of its global ebook offices and overseas manga editorial department, who did so during a recent interview given to Japanese news outlet Oricon News regarding the publisher's inaugural wordless manga contest. Open to any and all creators, said competition invites entrants to submit a personally created manga, quote, without speech bubbles or letterings, unquote, as based on either an original idea or a specified theme, small quote, and awards the winners with a cash prize and the opportunity to work with in-house manga editors to create either a comicalized work or an original work, unquote. In parentheses here, for those curious, this year's theme was Spanish writer Miguel de Cervantes' seminal novel Don Quixote, unparenthesed. All right. I guess here are some of the, at least some of the English translation of some of the contestant rules here. Let's see now. All right. Let's see. Including manga editors will support winners to work on manga creation at Kadokawa. There are no language barriers. Applications are welcome from across the world. Winners are panned to be invited to award ceremony. Okay, I think planned is the term they were actually trying for there. Planned to be invited to the award ceremony and editorial department tour. Winning works will be released on Kadokawa's manga portal website, Kadokawa. Prizes awaiting the winner. All right. Speaking to the contest debut outing, which saw, quote, 1,126 submissions from 104 countries and regions, unquote, and had its winners announced this past April, Tomazaki explained that the overall event was created in response to the fact that, quote, with the recent proliferation of digital comics, the supply of manga has skyrocketed, unquote. But, quote, the number of manga artists has not kept pace, making the discovery of talented new talent a pressing issue for each editorial department. Basically, as I said, the older generations are dying off. We've actually noted some recent people involved in the anime industry, like the other day, Yuki Kaijira, who did the music for like the Dot Hack series, among other things. You know, just turned 60. So, a lot of these people are getting older, and, but because of the fact, people haven't been going out and having babies in Japan in recent years, the population's kind of, hey there, if it shows up. Yeah, and of course, for those on Rumble, if I could, I would highlight your chats as well. But as it would appear, can't, because Rumble's not actually connected to StreamYard. So, but with that being said, but I will keep checking to see if anybody does, comment, and I will respond as quickly as I can. Let's see, quote, what's particularly lacking is talent for comic book adaptations, unquote, added Sagawa, as machine translated by DeepL. Quote, while there's an abundance of original works, particularly light novels and other worlds, there's an overwhelming lack of manga artists capable of adapting them, leading to a fierce scramble among companies to secure them, unquote. Quote, however, simply joining the race to acquire talent won't broaden the pool, and it won't be a fundamental solution. Discovering and nurturing the next generation of popular artists is an essential mission for manga editors. So we focused on discovering aspiring manga artists from overseas who are currently an untapped market, unquote. Let's see. To this end, Sagawa then explained that that while the manga style of sequential art was wholly a Japanese invention, Kadokawa had opened their doors to international creators in order to head off the company's ever-shrinking local market potential. Itself a side effect of the country's aforementioned birth crisis. Per data collected by the United Nations, Japan's, quote, births per women, smaller quote, have fallen from roughly 3.43 in 1950, basically just short of 3.5 kids per family. In parentheses, the first year the organization began to record such data, on parentheses, to an abysmal 1.37, just a little over 1.33 in 2024, due to major factors like poor job market prospects, the rising cost of living against stagnant wages based on a declining currency, and a disconnect between Japan's highly rigid workplace culture and a rise in parents wanting to spend more time with their families. Quote, we will do our utmost to support their dreams of debuting as manga artists in Japan by applying Kadokawa's editorial expertise. However, we do not necessarily believe that the starting point for their works must be in Japan. In Japan, where the population is increasingly aging and birth rates are declining, creating manga targeted at Japanese audiences presents significant commercial challenges, especially for works aimed at younger audiences. However, countries in Southeast Asia, for example, have populations where over 50% are young people, making it possible to compete with works aimed at younger audiences. Now, the population crisis in Japan has gotten so bad, and I remember, I think it was Yellow Flash who actually reported on this, where the Japanese Diet, basically their version of Parliament, was actually asking manga artists, mangakas, manga creators, to actually write more stories aimed at trying to like stimulate the idea of procreating. So, all right. So let's see here. We continue on here. All right. So, quote, to this end, Sagawa noted that more than just recruiting overseas talent, the wordless manga contest was part of a larger effort by Kadokawa to expand their presence on the international scene. Quote, in the long term, we are preparing to establish local development editorial departments at overseas bases to create works in brackets. At present, Kadokawa has digital offices in 19 different countries, including Italy and the United States, unbracketed. We aim to connect overseas bases seamlessly and establish a global editorial system that breaks through language barriers within a few years, unquote. Now, can you imagine that for a moment? If you had, especially if you're, I would think that even the subtitling process for mangas would be that much quicker, because if you have this whole network of offices all over the world, you could actually have a case where you could have them doing mangas where they're actually doing both the Japanese version and the English version at the same time, or doing the Japanese, English, Italian, whatever other, depending upon where you're at in the world. So that'd be interesting aspect too. Let's see. And again, a friendly reminder to you guys, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that, we'll get ready to continue on here. Continue on with the article here. And welcome to the person lurking in Rumble. I see there is a second person viewing there, so I appreciate that. So, hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully you enjoy the show. Let's see. All right, so let's continue on here. There's some of the manga art there, of course. As the interview drew to an end, Sagawa ultimately asserted, quote, "It is truly appreciated that the winners respect Japanese manga. However, we hope that in the future, each of them will target not only Japanese readers, but also readers worldwide when creating their works," unquote. So what I'm interpreting there is that what Kadokawa is hoping is that when they come to work for the manga companies, they will want to basically continue to publish the mangas as the Japanese want to, as the fans have called out for, not for doing the whole Western audiences bit. Quote, "If global hit works emerge from this, the global manga culture will develop even more positively," unquote, he posited. quote, we aim for the overseas manga editorial department and the global editorial framework we envision beyond it to become a hub for such initiatives. We will deepen communication with outstanding creators worldwide. So that's the end of the first article there. I'll get ready to move on to the second one here. Let's see now. That was the first article. Now we'll get ready to go check out the second article I picked for tonight to go over. All right. All right. So those are the person, unfortunately, but the one from Rumble. But anyways. All right. So anyways, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's continue on with the article here. All right, so Marvel Comics executive editor says, quote, it says in smaller quotes, big bads like Doctor Doom, Magneto never stay reformed because fans want a, quote, classic villain to be a villain, unquote. So, from Doctor Doom to Magneto to Lex Luthor to Catwoman, one would be hard-pressed to find a Western comic book supervillain that hasn't experienced their own, in smaller quotes, temporary redemption arc, unsmall quote. And though their eventual returns to evil form have long ceased to be anything but eye-rolling, Marvel Comics executive editor Tom Brevoort says that such resets are the norm because a good chunk of fans will inevitably want to see any given iconic bad guy facing off against their respective heroes. Brevoort spoke to this publishing reality in response to a fan question as submitted and answered for the August 3rd entry of his personal Man with a Hat Substack blog regarding the aforementioned Latverian dictator's brief stint as the infamous Iron Man. Penned by Brian Michael Bendis, said story arc found Doctor Doom choosing to dedicate himself to a, quote, life of protecting instead of conquering, unquote. He believed that if he was unable to find self-satisfaction even after remaking the Marvel Universe in his image during Secret Wars, destiny was meant to have him fight on the side of the angels. Interesting concept there. So, choosing to assume the armored Avenger in service of both his own admiration of Tony Stark and the role being made vacant thanks to his being left near dead by Carol Danvers' hand at the climax of the Civil War II, Doom would spend the next 2 years actually making good on his attempt at penance, helping the Avengers on numerous occasions, and even managing to win the begrudging respect of such heroes as The Thing, and even Sorcerer Supreme, serving version of Tony from the far future. However, this turning over of a new leaf would eventually turn out to be nothing more than a phase for the Fantastic Four's greatest rival, as due to little more reason that Bendis' exit, in parentheses, and Tony Stark's eventual return, in parentheses, in Invincible Iron Man Volume 1, number 600, and the need to give an ounce of familiarity to the launch of Fantastic Four Volume 6, he would ultimately find himself inspired by a band of pro-Doom rebels to return to his former ways. Great! Some people were actually in favor of the bad guy. Let's see now. Asked by a fan as to whether there was, quote, any discussion about keeping Dr. Doom as the infamous Iron Man after Bendis finished his run on Iron Man Volume 1, or was the idea always doomed, unquote. Brevoort began his answer with the assertion, quote, that's the thing about villains, unquote. Quote, several of them have become so popular that they've switched over to becoming headliners on their own to one degree of success or another, unquote, he explained. Quote, so it's not impossible that we might have gone further with a reformed Doom, by the same token, especially with the Fantastic Four coming back following, in brackets here, following a 2-year post-Secret War break, unbracketed, you kind of want their most classic villain to be a villain once they're back in play. All right. But far from just Dr. Doom, Brevoort then pointed to Marvel's Merry Band of Mutants as an example of how this sentiment was pretty much the standard for any and all such quote, in small quotes, headliner villains, unsmall quote. Quote, this is also sort of the situation the X-Men faces right now, how to have a decade in which their most well-known and popular foes were essentially their next-door neighbors. At a certain point, you want to see them fight Magneto or Apocalypse or Mr. Sinister or whomever again, you know, unquote. All right, and there we go with that one. And before I do get into the third article, that was finishing off I do need to step away from the camera for a moment. I do need to step away from the camera for a moment, so I'll be right back. I hope you guys have been enjoying the show thus far. I'll put some music on while I'm gone to keep you guys entertained. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So hopefully everybody's enjoying the show thus far. Let's see. Alrighty then. So all right. So now moving on to the next story here. So I find the cursor, of course. All right. So King of the Hill, smaller quotes there. Revival boss says, quote, or it's, quote, impossible, unquote, to recreate original's animation style because tools, quote, don't exist anymore, unquote. Article published by Spencer Piccoli on August 12th, which of course is yesterday. So, while the Disney produced King of the Hill revival may have delivered in terms of its writing, its animation was just as disappointingly stiff and lifeless as early previews had suggested. And while many fans were hoping it would bear something akin to the original's hand-drawn aesthetic, showrunner Saladin K. Patterson said that such a goal is near quote-unquote impossible in the current era. What doesn't exist in? Well, I guess we'll get into that. They're just saying, from at least if you go by the headlines, they say based on the headline, I guess tools they used to make King of the Hills animation special don't exist anymore. I think that's what they're trying to say there. Fishozo. Anyways. Also, that's a bad excuse, as they can easily composite the cartoon to make it look faded. Well, let's see what more they have to say about all this. So, Patterson, a noted TV producer and writer, whose past credits include The Bernie Mac Show, Psych, The Big Bang Theory, and 2021's reboot of The Wonder Years, offered his insight into Rainy Street's new look while speaking to The Hollywood Reporter's Abby White in reflection of the revival season's production. Okay. And of course, a friendly reminder to everybody here. If you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here that we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. This goes for both my YouTube and my Rumble viewers. So I see we have one other Rumble viewer there. So welcome to the Mikestand. I hope you are enjoying this show thus far. And with that, we'll continue on with we will continue on with our show here. Asked by White if he could talk, quote, about the decision making, unquote, that went into King of the Hill's new, quote unquote, flat animation style, Patterson bluntly admitted to his host that said change was an unfortunate side effect of the industry's move towards cost cutting and digitization. So Patterson's here saying that the reason the animation become more flat is because studios are trying to cut costs and use more digital animation as opposed to like the hand drawn stuff. So, all right, so let's see. Quote, I do want to address the art because that's probably been the most universal thing that has shook the new audience when they saw the previews and things like that. That the animation looks so different. Quote, I get it, and I get why people who want to revisit the show may be taken aback a little bit. The new animation style is all digital now, but the truth of the matter is, it is impossible to do the show now the way it was done then. The hand drawn animation, the watercolors, those don't exist anymore. If they exist, they certainly don't exist at a cost where you can do a TV show. So it has to be updated, and so we updated it with the current style and makeup of animation that animated shows do. So what he's saying here is that okay, so the watercolors, the hand drawn animation, the watercolors don't exist anymore. That's what he's saying. Or if they do, then they do at a pretty hefty cost. You know, so that's what he's getting at. In other words, it's actually more expensive to do it. I think what he's saying is more expensive to actually do it hand drawn than it is. Let's see, more rig based animation, and then hey Netsuri, thanks for popping in. I'm streaming on Rumble as well now, so there are two sites you can catch me on, both on YouTube and on Rumble. So yeah. So anyways, um, let's see now. All right. So getting back to the article here. Okay. Quote: I admit it does look different. Actually, oh, and maybe jarring to some people. I just want to put out there that even though it's updated, we still went and tried to give it an age old look to make it feel more like the color palette and the landscape of the original, more so than other shows. We certainly want we certainly went through a lot of back and forth with the background designers and things like that to make our colors feel closer to what they felt in the original and the tones and things the most that we could, unquote. Mhm. And while not specifically related to its visuals, Patterson also noted that in addition to animation budget restrictions, the script for the King of the Hill's new season also had to weather its script being picked according to the pearl-clutching sensitivities of Disney executives. Quote, yes, Fox back then, with adult animation, let certain shows really push the envelope. Family Guy really pushed the envelope. The Simpsons, to a very measured extent. King of the Hill, though, never pushed the envelope. In the same way, in terms of being in your face, but it may have pushed the envelope in terms of some of the social commentary. Quote, so when we were doing it now for Hulu under the Disney banner, on the one hand, the Hulu execs for the show were fans of the original. So we all were on the same page in terms of wanting to recapture what made the original special. But there were situations where the Disney of it all put some limiters on us that I know Fox would not have. Even though we were on Hulu and streaming, which theoretically has broader standards and practices, S&P bracket standards and practices than Fox. But for us, staying true to the show meant we weren't ever going to be too gratuitous with the curse words and things, but we do take some liberties. The characters do curse in ways they can't curse on broadcast. So there's another way to avoid ID verification. Start watching a bunch of King of the Hill episodes online, particularly the new ones, I guess. King of the Hill was trying to be like a slice of life show. So rather than anything else. Yeah. TYAN. All right, so quote, that being said, Hulu still made us go through and pull out all the F-bombs because they don't want the TVMA label, and it's fine. I totally get it. It is what it is. I'm not a huge fan of the shows pushing the envelope in that way anyway. So it wasn't a big loss. But it was ironic, especially considering, like you said, the history of the show being on Fox, where the whole purpose was to try to push the envelope as much as you could. All right, so there we go. There we go with the articles. We all that caught up there. 47 minutes. All right. So of course we're going to move on now to the. Actually, I do need to step away from the computer for a moment, so I will be right back. I'll put some music on while I'm gone. Be right back. All right, I'm back. So now we're going to go ahead and go on to the wrestling wrap up here. Going to look back to last night's NXT as well as look ahead to tonight's AEW. Get caught up on all the latest in terms of the wrestling news. Let me just see here. All right. So here we go. All right. So on last night's NXT, coming from the WWE Performance Center, Orlando, Florida, the show started off with a singles match in which Nia Jax defeated Lash Legend in a one-on-one match, in a match that was set up last week. Joe Hendry defeated Charlie Dempsey in a one-on-one match. Fallon Henley's, Fatal Influences, Fallon Henley and JC Jane, the current NXT Women's Champion, were actually defeated by Kalani Jordan and Lola Vice in a tag team match. Of course, Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix have a title shot at the TNA Knockouts World Championship coming up this Friday on TNA. Alba Fire, with Piper Niven in her corner, defeated Kendall Gray in a singles match. Then the main event saw the team of Dark State of Osiris Griffin, Cutter James, Dion Lennox, and Shaquan Evans defeat, or Shaquan Sugars defeat Javon Evans, NXT champion Obafemi, the franchise of TNA, face of the franchise of TNA, Moose, and TNA World Champion Trick Williams. All right, so let's see now. And again, feel free to comment and or ask questions if anything grabs your attention. That includes my Rumble audience as well. Anyways. All right, so now we're going to move ahead to tonight's AEW, look ahead to tonight's AEW Dynamite. Looking ahead to tonight's AEW Dynamite as they continue to march their way towards Forbidden Door, coming up on Sunday, August the 24th, so a week from this Sunday. Coming from the Andrew J. Brady Music Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, on TBS. Jon Moxley is set to take on Kevin Knight in a singles match. An untitled six-man tag match. The AEW's World Trios Champions of the Ops of Powerhouse Hobbs, Katsuyori Shibata, and Samoa Joe will be taking on La Facción Ingobernables of Beast Mortos, Dralistico, and Rush. An eight-man tag match. Brody King will be teaming up with the conglomeration's Hologram and New Japan Strong openweight champion Tomoya Ishii and a mystery partner to take on the Don Callis family's Josh Alexander and TNT champion Kyle Fletcher, as well as the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. In a six-woman tag match, Mercedes Moné and Triangle of Madness's Sky Blue and Tekla will be taking on Alex Windsor, Queen Aminata, and Will Nightingale. Of course, Alex Windsor has already has already taken one of the spots at the Forbidden Door TBS title challenge, in which Mercedes Moné will be defending the TBS championship in a four-way match with Alex Windsor representing AEW, and also it's still to be determined representatives from both Stardom and CMLL will also be announced. And then Adam Copeland, Cope as he's known, will take on Stokely Hathaway. So that's all I got for the wrestling wrap up. Now let's get ready to move on to this day in each history, as of course today is Wednesday, Wednesday, August the 13th, 2025. So let's take a look back at this date in each history. So, just 85, 2000, and 1950. All right, the first thing I'd like to do, of course, is wish a happy 75th birthday. Let me pull that up here. I'd like to wish a happy 75th birthday to English actress Jane Carr. Jane Carr, of course, provided the voice of Puddin in The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, as well as Mama Cosma in the Fairly Odd Parents, Grandma Winfred Fletcher in Phineas and Ferb, Dan and Ann Chovy in Fishhooks, Mrs. Dunwitty in Treasure Planet. So happy 75th birthday to English actress Jane Carr. All right, so anyways, getting ready to now moving on to the next piece in each history as we move ahead to the year 1985. On this date in the year 1985, the The 105th issue of Archie at Riverdale High went on sale on this date back in 1985, 40 years ago today. The features include two Archie features, two Reggie features, and a Dylan Doyley feature. The Marines are looking for a few good men, as well as Triathlon Trial. Reggie, the truth about Reggie's roots, and Proof Positive, and then Dylan Doyley in Grid Grind. So, 40 years ago today, the 105th issue of Archie at Riverdale High went on sale on this date back in the year 1985. And finally, on this date in the year 2000, 25 years ago today, on this date 25 years ago today in the year 2000, that's not or on this date in the year 2000, WCW held its New Blood Rising pay-per-view on this date back in the year 2000. New Blood Rising was a professional wrestling pay-per-view produced by World Championship Wrestling that replaced WCW's August pay-per-view event Road Wild, held from 1997-99 on a Saturday. Took place on August 13, 2000, from the Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver, British Columbia. The name is a reference to the New Blood faction in WCW, which dissolved before the pay-per-view. This WCW pay-per-view was held on Sunday instead of Saturday. Despite never being announced before or during the show, every match on the card was contested under no disqualification rules. Show opened up with a six-man tag match in which 3 count of Shane Helms, Evan Courageous, and Shannon Moore, with Tank Abbott in their corner, defeated the Jung Dragons, Jamie-san, Kaz Hayashi, and Yung Yang. The Ernest Cat Miller defeated the Great Muta. In a Judy Bagwell on a forklift match, Buff Bagwell defeated Canyon. In a match for the WCW World Tag Team Champions, Chronic of Brian Adams and Brian Clark retained over the Perfect Event of Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak, Mark Jindrak and Sean O'Hare, and the Misfits in Action, General Erection and Corporal Cajun in a Four Corners match, with, of course, Disco Inferno, Tigress, and Rey Mysterio Jr. Serving as guest referees. Let's see. Then later on in a strap match, Billy Kidman defeated Shane Douglas in a mud rip off the clothes match. Major Guns defeated Miss Hancock. Miss Hancock would later become known as Stacy Keibler. Sting defeated the Demon in 52 seconds. In a Canadian rules match for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship, with Jacques Rougeau serving as guest referee, Lance Storm defeated Mike Awesome. Vampiro and Great Muta defeated Chronic to become the new WCW World Tag Team Champions. Kevin Nash defeated Goldberg and Scott Steiner in a triple threat match. And Booker T retained the WCW World Heavyweight title over Jeff Jarrett. So that's all I got for you guys tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. Hopefully, I won't be quite as out of it. I had a doctor's appointment today, so things were a little screwy. Also, and just trying to set up the Rumble, setting up the Rumble stream. Finding out things on the fly, like not being able to read the comments or respond to comments on the StreamYard part of it. So I have to keep going back and forth to see. But with that, I thank everybody for being here. We'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow, as I said. And also, don't forget this Sunday, I'll be joined by The Metal. We'll be going down, as we'll be continuing our trek down Comics History Lane, and we'll be continuing our trek to June of 1940, comics that went on sale in June of 1940. So with that, I thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you all back here tomorrow. Bye.